Today we're diving into a powerful and, believe it or not, perfectly legal financial strategy that the ultra-wealthy use. It's called buy, borrow, die, and it's basically the playbook for how massive fortunes can grow while paying next to nothing in income tax. So let's get into how it works.
First, just look at these numbers. They come from a huge ProPublica investigation that calculated a true tax rate. That's taxes paid compared to how much someone's wealth actually grew. Now, between 2014 and 2018, the average American paid about 20%. Okay, in that same period, Jeff Bezos, his rate was less than 1%. And Warren Buffett, his was just 0.1%. The difference is just staggering.
So, that brings us to the big question, right? How is this even possible? And we're not talking about illegal schemes or hiding money offshore. The answer is actually written right into the U.S. tax code itself.
It all starts with this one core concept called the realization principle. And it's pretty simple. Let's say your stock portfolio doubles in value. Well, you don't actually owe any tax on that gain until you sell. Your wealth can literally explode, but as long as you just hold on to those assets, the IRS doesn't see it as taxable income. This one rule is the foundation for this entire strategy.
And that principle is the key that unlocks a simple but honestly brilliant three-step playbook. A law professor named Edward McCaffrey actually coined the term for it way back in the 90s, and it just perfectly describes the strategy. Buy, borrow, die. Let's break down each step.
All right, step one is all about one thing: accumulation. This is the buy phase, and it's all about getting your hands on the right kind of assets. So the goal here is to own things that are just going to grow in value over time. Stocks, real estate, maybe even fancy art. The trick is to stay away from things that spit out taxable income every year, like stock dividends. By just buying and holding, your wealth gets to compound tax-free, building this enormous base of collateral that you're going to need for the next step.
Okay, so you have billions in assets, which is great, but you can't exactly use a stock certificate to buy groceries. You need cash. And this brings us to the truly genius second step: borrow.
So you have a choice to make. You need cash. You could sell your assets, but the second you do that, bam, you trigger a huge capital gains tax bill. But there's another path. Instead of selling, you borrow against those assets. And here's the key: a loan is not income, it's debt. So you can get millions, even billions in cash to live on, completely tax-free.
And a special key that unlocks this is something called a Securities-Backed Line of Credit, or an SBLOC. Banks are more than happy to give these to billionaires. They offer these enormous lines of credit at super low interest rates because, well, the loan is backed up by a giant portfolio of stocks. You can think of it like a credit card with an insane limit, where your stocks are the collateral.
Okay, so you've bought assets, you've borrowed against them to live tax-free. But what about the loans? And what about all those massive untaxed gains just sitting there? Well, this leads us to the final and most unbelievable step in the playbook: die.
Let's make this super simple. Imagine you buy a stock for just $1. Over your lifetime, it explodes in value and it's now worth $1,000. That's a $999 gain that, so far, has never been touched by taxes. Now, this is where the magic happens. The moment you pass away, a rule in the tax code called the stepped-up basis kicks in. And what this does is it basically hits a giant reset button. The cost of that asset for your heirs is no longer the $1 you paid, it's now the $1,000 it was worth on the day you died. So what happens to that $999 gain? Poof, it vanishes. For income tax purposes, it's just gone. Your heirs inherit the stock with a new cost of $1,000. They can turn around, sell it immediately for that price, pay off all your loans, and they will owe exactly $0 in income tax. The slate is wiped completely clean.
And this table right here shows you exactly why holding on until death is the whole game. See, if you gift an asset to your kids while you're alive, they also get your original low cost. They'll eventually have to pay the tax on that gain. But if they inherit it, that stepped-up basis just erases the tax liability forever.
So, as you can probably imagine, a strategy like this has sparked a major debate. A lot of people see it as a loophole that's just got to be closed. So let's take a quick look at the main ideas for how to change things. As you can see, the main proposals really target each step of the playbook. To deal with the buy step, there's the idea of a mark-to-market tax, which would tax big gains every year, even if you don't sell. For the borrow step, some say we should just treat those huge loans as if they were a sale, making them taxable. And for the die step, the simplest idea is just to repeal that stepped-up basis rule altogether. And all of this really leaves us with one final fundamental question.
This whole buy, borrow, die strategy only works because our tax code treats wealth from assets differently than it treats income from a job. So the real debate is about whether that difference should even exist. Should $1 billion in wealth growth be taxed the same way as a paycheck? It's a question that gets right to the very heart of what fairness really means in our economic system.